this is a really long video, but before the video actually starts, I want to explain a little bit about it. This video here is meant for a lot of your average Joes and all that working on this stuff, and I promise everything that's in this video is every little obstacle we came across is something I wanted to pinpoint out. It's not one of those videos where you watch and someone's already pre-broken the bolts loose, stuff like that. I wanted to show you every little problem because I'm not trying to necessarily promote for you to get headers, but I want you to know what comes with as far as getting the headers installed. After we did get the headers installed, the truck does run, really well. It's got a little bit different tone to it. It's nothing crazy, so don't expect huge gains or anything like that. But you see in the video where I show you what the stock manifold looks like and then what the header looks like, you can definitely tell logically that there's definitely going to be performance gains. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I appreciate you. What's up, everyone? So today's video is, well, it is what it is. So we developed the notorious Hemi tick on our Ram, and you know what? I was really nervous at first because I thought it might have been one of our lifters and all that. And then I started doing some research, and actually a guy at work hit me up about it. He said, hey, these trucks are known for breaking manifold bolts. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, around 70,000 miles. I'm like, I got 70,000 miles. And long story short, I started doing some research on videos and all that. I'm like, that's exactly what my truck sounds like. Sounds like I got either a broken manifold bolt or they backed out. So I'm like, sweet. So maybe I'll get lucky and it's just loose. I'll be able to tighten it up temporarily to get us by for our trip and all that, so it doesn't sound like a turd when it starts up. And long story short, open up the wheel wells. It was a broken bolt. We could take the bolts out and just put a nice set of ARPs in there, and it would probably fix the problem because ARPs are cat's meow for bolts. But we feel like that since we're already there, we might as well put some headers on. And to make it real quick, as far as why we decided shorty over long tube headers, it's just because we want to be able to bolt on. We don't want to mess with the cats and all that stuff. This is our truck that we use for all our videos that we make, our trips, and I just want to make it extremely reliable. Not that doing long tube with the right Y pipe isn't reliable, but that was going to be $2,000, and at the end of the day, it's still just a truck. That's kind of where we're at. So we know if we put even some shorties on there, which is good for your low and mid range, it's going to help us with pulling. It's going to make it sound better, and that's why we ended up doing what we did. Now, as far as looking at headers, it was literally a crapshoot. It was so frustrating, in my opinion, because if you look at almost all these reviews on these headers for these trucks, either the one set that I found that was really good, that was actually really cheap, it was only like 270 bucks. It was, I can't remember the name of it. It was like on Amazon when I looked at it. And so, big thing there was it wasn't a name brand. And what everyone said about that one was, as far as it was horrible to install. You can get it done, as they would state, but it was horrible to install. And then the other part too was finding something where they would say, it wouldn't mount really good to like your Y pipe system already, and like the flange system would be off, and you'd have a gap. I was like, man, I just want a good set of shorty headers. I didn't think it'd be this difficult to find something. Or you find other ones which were actually good name brands, and then they're saying they're leaking or they're poor welds, and it was just horrible to try to pick something out. So we ended up picking up a good mid-range header, which is by JBA, and they look good, and we went with just a natural finish. We're going to get our ceramic paint, and we're actually going to paint these up and all that to help with heat a little bit. And like I said, ARP, some of your headers that you buy will come with bolts and hardware and all that stuff. I wouldn't use it personally. These right here were 80 bucks, and honestly, with all the reassurance and all that, I would just go with ARP every time. So that's what we run on our Jeep and all that, is ARP bolts, and it's held up great. We also did some Velcro gaskets here, which are going to be your metal ones. I would not do paper, because what you're going to hear with that is people blowing them out. And on top of that, let's say your header bolts do back out a little bit, and you get a header leak. Well, if you have paper, you're going to blow that gasket out, then you're going to have to replace it. But with these metal ones, you should just be able to retighten, and you'll be good to go. So that being said, we're doing a quick startup here, and the truck is a smudge warm. So when you first start your truck up, you'll hear this loud ticking noise, and then because of things heating up, it kind of seals up, and that's why that ticking goes away. If it was a lifter, it would probably just tick the whole time, or if you have a very aggressive exhaust leak, I would assume that would be the other reason. So I'm going to do a quick startup. It should tick a little bit for you guys, and then I'm also going to show you guys a clip of with the cutout open. We'll do a little, rev and all that with the stock manifolds. So then after we get the headers on, all that, blah, 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 hopefully this job goes good. You'll be able to hear the difference between stock manifold and the headers. And this will be nice, there will be no debate on the mufflers or anything like that. It'll just be straight out of Y pipe. So, it'll be straight out of the cutout, so you'll be able to, should be able to tell a little bit of a difference. So. Be able to hear it on camera. It's way louder on the first startup, but like I said, it is a little warm. So next things we're going to do is specify too, this is going to be a 3-day process that I do this stuff. In 3 days is hopefully everything goes well, but I've been told, sorry, those are my headlights, they freak out a little bit. So I've been told that this job is like patience is key. So, and that's, especially we got, bolts that we don't want to break anymore. I'd prefer, it looks like only one's broken right now, so if I only have to get, work one out, that'd be great. So our goal today is we're going to jack it up, take the wheels off to give us a little extra room, pull the wheel wells out, and then we're going to PB blast everything. And then we're going to start the truck up, we're going to heat cycle it a little bit, and then we're going to let the truck cool back down, and then we're going to hit the bolts again with some PB, and then we're going to let it sit for a day. Now, is that necessary? Absolutely not. Putting PB on, yes, but this is just, again, like I said, we're going to take it nice and slow, hopefully make the job go good, not rushing anything, because then after day 2 we'll be back in here and we'll start to break bolts loose. Other thing that I've seen people doing is that you got to take the steering shaft out, so we'll have to take that out, which I haven't even looked at it, so, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But we'll pop that out to give us more room on working your driver's side manifold out. Passenger side, there's room for days, so that's a good thing. But other than that, sorry, it's pretty dirty. I should have probably cleaned the truck before doing this, but it is what it is. So you got these little bolts here, which I believe those are 8mm, and then you're gonna have a plastic tab in here, and there should be like one up here. There's another bolt. Then you're gonna have one in that corner there also. And that's how we pop the whole wheel well out, and that's what's going to give you access to your manifold. What's up, everyone? We are on day 2 now, working on the Ram, and we're going to really get at it tonight, I think. So what we did, we've been PB blasting all our studs and all that, and our headers, or our manifolds, and we actually started taking just our heat shield off here, which is just, let's see, 1, 2, looks like 3 bolts. Maybe, I think it was 4. Maybe it's three nuts. And what they are, chances are they might twist off, but if you're putting headers on, it's not going to matter because you're not going to reuse those anyways. Just because they're so tiny and they're rusted. Maybe we would have put a little heat on them, but it didn't matter if we broke or not, as long as, whatever, they came off. So now we're to where we're going to start taking the bolts out of the manifold. And we're definitely going to apply heat to them and just be very, very gentle on getting these things out, because we don't want to break any more bolts in the actual, block. So we got that one we're going to deal with on the driver's side, but right now we're doing the passenger side where we don't have anything broken. Alright guys, I'm not going to show you every bolt that we do, but I will show you at least one of them. So what you're going to want to do is take your torch. And you're going to get your heat. You want to really kind of work it around there. Don't be generous. Really get at it. Another thing you're going to want to do is, once it's warm, ooh, I gotta pay attention. What you're gonna want to do is, once it's warm and you start putting your socket on there, go to unloosen it, and if it feels like it loosens up a little bit, if the thing gets tight, put it back, switch and retighten it, and keep on kind of working it back and forth a little bit until you feel it break loose a little bit better. Don't just try to force it. So we're actually trying to get a little bit in the base right there. And then just watch your, those hoses right here are for your heater core. So just make sure you don't accidentally hit those with their torch when you're backing the flame off or bringing your flame in. So we're going to get at that one. And then we got these here. And then you got a couple on the bottom, which will be a little bit harder as far as to see on the camera especially. So we're not even going to try to show those. And once we get those buttoned loose and all that, then we're going to take this off here. I don't think there's any type of certain order. It doesn't matter. Actually, you probably get pretty close. We're probably going to undo this, and then we'll remove the rest of the bolts. But yeah, hopefully it goes good, and we get a head start on this thing. We're not installing the headers. Right now we're taking the manifolds off because we have to actually, we're going to paint our headers since they're just a natural finish. There's no coating on them. So we got some header paint that's rated for 2,000 degrees that we're going to spray them up and all that. And then it's going to be game on. So I'm pretty pumped, and I want to get this done. All right. So what you have here, some of the things they tell you about is your steering linkage here. They show popping it out, and also thing is moving this dipstick is the other thing. For right now, we're going to see how much we can get undone before we have to remove any of this stuff, and then we'll go from there. So we've already hit this with PB Blaster. We're going to hit it one more time and then start heating things up and breaking it loose. So we'll see how far we get till we got to remove this dipstick. The broken bolt is right here on the dipstick, so we'll see how that plays out. There should be something possibly to disconnect from down there to pull the dipstick actually out, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So we ended up getting this manifold out. We got all our bolts out. This side did take longer. We had to heat up bolts multiple times. We just took our time, but we got them all out. This is our one here on the top left that's actually snapped off. So let's see if I can get you guys a better view. So that's it right there. You can see it's broken off in there. It's right there at the edge though. So our brother-in-law is actually going to come tomorrow and help us weld on this and get it out, hopefully. Because there's not a lot of room, because our AC lines, I believe those are kind of in our way. So it'd be a little more difficult using a self-tap to try to get it out. So we're going to see, hopefully we can weld it and get it out. He's pretty good at that stuff, so we'll see what happens. The other thing too is that they tell you to do is remove this here, which we were able to snake out the stock manifold. So if you're just replacing bolts or stock manifolds, you'll be good. You don't have to take this out. It was a very, very tight fit, and we had to really work it to get it out. But for us putting an aftermarket header in, we are definitely going to have to take this off. So we're going to do that tomorrow. But for tonight, we're going to button up the other side, get our header on and all that. And that way, so when the brother-in-law comes, hopefully we get that out. And then we'll only be a little bit of ways away from getting the stock header on and hopefully getting fired up tomorrow. We got some new grade 8 bolts for our Y-pipe manifold collector here. All this good stuff. So we're going to upgrade all that. It'll be nuts and bolts. It won't be the whatever, the tab system or whatever they use. We're going to eliminate that. Just use some good, grade 8 with some locking washers. It'll be good. Alright, so we ran into a couple complications. One of them would being that the ARP bolts does not look like they gave us enough, which is, it was the right set, so I don't know what the deal with that is. The other part is, it's a 12 point, which was fine and dandy, but we came to a spot on our header here, and we actually had it all bolted up, and then we had to take it all off again. Let's see if I get some good light here for you guys. So this bolt right here that got started was the issue because it literally was right behind the pipe here, which isn't a big deal, but I couldn't get any of my wrenches on there to tighten it up because you can't put, a closed end on it. It's got to be an open end. So saying, couldn't get this on there because it was too thick, and then the other option was this end, and obviously you can't do that on a 12 point. So I guess thinking about it in my head right now, they make thin wrenches, which would probably be your best bet, I guess. So technically I could have probably taken a grinder, maybe, but then again, I don't know. Either way, we're going to use one of the bolts anyway. Since we're already shorted, it's not a big deal. We're going to have to use these just to get us by. Ew, not the best grade, but these are the bolts that came with the headers, so we're just going to use a couple of those. A nice 8-point. Oop, sorry. I mean, they're a nice 6-point bolt, and it'll be fine. So the biggest thing why these bolts break are because of your manifolds. Since we're on headers now, we shouldn't have that issue, or hopefully not for a very long time. So we're just going to use that in there, so then we could use our little wrench here that we bent up for other header jobs to get that in. So hopefully that's the only complication. So saying this, passenger side, there's more room to work with, but the bolts for the header are definitely harder to get in. It's definitely a lot more angles. The other side, I was checking it out. It looks pretty, I shouldn't say it's going to be easy, but it looks pretty good. If we get that bolt out, I got confidence. So we're going to retry this again and hopefully get this snugged up. And another tip too, another tip too for you guys is that you can see I put a strap right there, and I actually hooked it to the frame so I could ratchet back, because what we were having was that this was sticking too far forward and it wasn't letting us bolt our header in. So hoping that that does not cause a complication when we go to hook up the other side, and hopefully we release that strap, we can get it lined up enough for where it all bolts in. So I will tell you, as this job goes on, I almost wish I just would have did new bolts and put the manifolds on, but I say that now, it's just a little bit extra work, and I'm hoping that it'll be well worth it. We'll know that once we fire it up. Hopefully it sounds a little bit better, and hopefully you get a little extra power. So that'd be nice. But we're gonna get back at this and hopefully get this side done before this night's over. Alright guys, so we're back at it working today. Our brother-in-law actually already came by and hooked this up, got this bolt out. Didn't video it, didn't want to bother him, just let him do his work. But this was the stud that was actually, or the bolt that was broken off in there. And what he did was he welded a washer on there, and then just to get a little bit better contact, since the bolt was still recessed in the head a little bit, that's why I used the washer first. Tack the washer on there so it's thinner and you get better contact, and then he put the nut on there and he's able to weld on the side and then on the inside also, and it came right out. He was saying a lot of times, like when you're like breaking these bolts loose, all your tension, is really it's hung up inside the manifold, isn't necessarily tight inside your head, it's more in your manifold. So it actually backed out really easy. So I was very happy because the other options weren't great. There wasn't a lot of room here as far as where your AC lines are and all that, blah blah blah. It was going to be no bueno trying to self-tap that out. We probably would have ended up taking the head off, which would be not great. So I hope none of you guys are put in the position where you have to do that and you can make something work, or it just goes good for you. The other thing was too, like I told you, we were able to sneak the manifold out, but it was not going to be the case with getting the header. So we did pull our shaft off here. We made sure we marked it, so when we put the bolt or line it back up, you know, we want our steering to be dead nuts. So hopefully we didn't mess anything up. We'd be able to line it right back in. It should be good. Hopefully this is also enough to maneuver, which I'm thinking it will be, to get the header in there. And I know I didn't show you guys, I don't think, but with your headers you buy, you will get some cheap gaskets. Don't use those. They're paper. I'm going to tell you why here in a second. Other thing is too, we did actually get hardware that came with for the Y pipe, so that is nice. So it does come with hardware, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. So that's a good thing. Still have our ARP bolts left. And here are our gaskets. So this is what this is, you know, you can tell that this is way better quality. You're going to have a way better chance if a bolt were to back out that you don't blow it completely out. These are way more heavy duty and they're going to look way more like your factory that came out. So keep that in mind when you're doing this job, that you don't really want to be doing it again, right? So buying good bolts, you know, good gaskets are key. So we definitely did that. Here's your stock one right here. So that's what it looks like. But the only other worry we have is hopefully the Y pipe lines up good, and the other thing being, because we only went with the basic header, hopefully they don't get too hot and cause any issues, since we're not wrapping them. I prefer not to wrap them. And hopefully they don't cause any issues. So there are a couple spots with on the passenger side I'm going to show you. I got some type of heat tape we're going to put on there just to help it a little bit. And also here on this side we're going to take a glance, make sure everything's out of the way. Make sure if there's any wires you think they're going to bounce kind of close, try to zip tie them out of the way a little bit. But we're going to start getting this header on. We already cleaned up our surface and we're ready to go. So the other thing too with this header is, it's right here. As you can see how it's slotted, that's the bottom. So what we're going to do first is put our gasket on with the bolts, but we're not going to tighten them all the way up. So we'll be able to slide the bottom half of the header right on. So then you already have 4 of your bolts, which will be your harder to reach ones anyways, on there. And then this is how it's actually going to face. So then all you have to worry about, you got this guy right here, that's not bad. You got 2 here, that's not bad. You got 1 back here. And the only one that might give you a little bit of an issue is this one right here. But that, again, is still not bad. So I'm thinking this side's going to go way better. So passenger side, more room, but the bolts were a little bit trickier to get in. Not impossible. And driver's side looks like a little bit more cluttered space, but it looks like a lot better bolt position. So, you know what? Kind of evens out, and we're gonna get at this thing. I'm getting excited. Now we're getting closer to the bolts out, and now I'm excited to get this job done. What's up, everyone? So we finally got it all done. So I'm gonna show you guys what we had to do here real quick. It was definitely this was no picnic. So this is definitely not for your moderate, you know, mechanics, we'll say. You definitely have to have a little bit of experience to kind of get this job done. So as you can see, I thought these bolts were going to be easy, but they definitely were not. Another big thing was our oil tube here. We did not have to take it out, but we definitely had to bend it out of the way. Pulling your dipstick out, it's going to help you a lot. And after we got that pulled out, we were able to flex these lines and bend it past your compressor lines, whatever this line is here. And this is where we're going to leave it, because we're going to try to leave it as furthest away of the header as we can. So what we've been doing now is kind of pinpointing spots to where the heat might bother some stuff. I know some people wrap these headers, but man, like, it's already such a tight fit. Like, to put that thickness of wraparound would make things that much tighter to get to. So we've already done a couple of heat cycles actually. We're going to do some more before we button this up, and our game plan is to do some heat cycles, double check all our bolts, make sure they're tightened up, and then what we're going to do is button this all up. And we have a couple trips where we're going to put a few 100 miles on it or so. And before our big trip, we're going to pull the wheel wells back out and use that opportunity to have a little bit better access to our spark plugs and stuff. And we're going to put new spark plugs in it and get that job done and tighten our bolts at the same time. So that's our game plan there. I was wrong about how many bolts. The ARP definitely came with the right amount of bolts. I didn't realize that your driver's side actually takes less. Another trick that we did is that we put the gasket down first before the header, and then we put all 4 bolts on the bottom in as much as we could, and then we slid the header right in. That way that helps you to where you don't have to try to finger those bolts in, and the header is slotted to where you could just slide it right on. It was still took a little bit of maneuverability to get that header in, even with this stuff detached. And when we took our steering, we made sure that we put a couple marks on there to make sure that when we put it back, it's truly aligned. That way you don't make the mistake of maybe being off center a little bit and then having to get your whole vehicle realigned. So that's kind of a thing. We got our grade A bolts on there. That's looking good. But yeah, that's about it. So now we're just, like I said, looking for the hot spots. And what we're actually going to do, I'm going to show you on the other side, because you have a, I don't know if it's a cam sensor or what type of knock sensor or whatever kind of sensor is on the side of the block there. It's right next to your header. So what we're going to do is I actually have some, usually use like underneath your gas tank on like your race quads and stuff like that to help with the heat. We're going to place it right over that sensor, but then also we're going to take one of our existing heat shields that came off with the manifold that you don't reuse, and we're going to cut a piece out, drill a hole, and use one of our bolts on the other side to reflect that heat right where that sensor's at. And after that, all we have to do is button up a couple other hoses, and it should be good. And we have one wire over here that doesn't have anything protecting it, and we got some of that, I don't know what it's called. I'll know here in a second, but I'll show you what I'm going to use. And I just put it over the wire just to protect it just a little bit more, even though it'd probably be fine. But we're just trying to make sure everything's good. And how we're going to do that also is we're going to have the truck sit idle up to temp for, let's say, 20 minutes. And it being stagnant, just sitting here, should be a good test. Because usually you'd still have, you know, airflow going through here, whether your fan's running or just normal travel of air, to be pushing that heat away from anything important. So it just sitting here should be the ultimate test. Other big thing too I forgot to mention is make sure you use anti-seize on the bolts. So we got to take some of our bolts out on the other side that we missed the anti-seize on, and make sure we get that done. But other than that, after that we'll be buttoning this back up, which we'll have to get some of those new plastic tabs, which usually you can go to any of your, you know, Vance, Riley, AutoZone, Napa, whatever, and just get some new plastic tabs to insert into our plastic fender. They're not the most important. You do have plenty of screws to hold that plastic liner in, but you should still put them in. So just to help us though. And I'll probably get extras, because when we pull the fender out, chances are we might break them again. So we're going to get at it. We got everything pretty much buttoned up, like I said. And we'll do a little sound test for you guys, and that'll be the video. So I appreciate you guys definitely sticking with us this far, and I hope this video does help for sure too. So let's button this thing up and get at it. Alright, so what we're going to do is on this side here, right underneath that exhaust, is where your other bolt goes. And if you look, there's a sensor actually really close. So we cut this out of our old heat shield. We drew a hole, or drilled a hole, which you want to do where it's seamed like this, or if you do it on the other side, it'll start to break. This is actually a 2-piece aluminum shield, so it'll start to spread those pieces together. But do it right there by the seam, and you'll be good. And another thing, we didn't use that thick washer that come with the ARP bolts. We're just going to go with a thinner one, since we're already going through this, which is actually pretty thick. And the only reason we're putting a washer on there is just kind of widen out its grip a little bit on this, so it doesn't pivot. So we're going to see if it works. Hopefully it does. Alright, so we're back finishing this video up. We got our plastic tabs for our fender here. What we did for our heat, we actually, that was that heat tape I was talking to you guys about, that shielding stuff. Got that in there. We got our shield put down there, all buttoned up. And we did put covered the wires up down here. So she's good to go. We already did a couple heat cycles. We We retightened all the bolts, so it should be good to go. So we're going to get this buttoned up, and then we're going to give you a fire up, cold start, and that'll be it.